What's going on, guys? This is Gene Jensen, and real quick, I want to show you the 5 baits that I use for dock fishing during the pre-spawn and spawn. All right, so the first one, and probably the one I use the most, is some type of a skipping jig. Something you can skip up underneath the docks is always important, but this is a skipping jig from Greenfish Tackle in a color that I designed for them. I'll leave the link to all this stuff down in the description. But anyway, so I love one, and I'm gonna fish a 3/8 ounce almost 100% of the time because I have become very confident in skipping that size jig. But I love them in spring craw colors, and I love them in bluegill colors, and this orange and green pumpkin pretty much covers the same thing. The trailer I'm going to use is something like a 13 fishing Invader, and the key is that you really want to kind of pull the skirt material as far away from the head of it as you can, kind of get a good clearance right there, and then you want it to be flat on the bottom. So I'm going to use a flat type trailer, and that's just like skipping a stone. You skip, and it just makes it a whole lot easier to skip. I'm going to skip it with 20-pound test fluorocarbon, or 17 will work too. A 7'3" medium heavy rod, 8 1-to-1 gear ratio reel, and I'm going to have the drag tightened all the way down. So skipping jig, definitely fun around docks. All right, so the next one is probably won me more money while working docks this time of the year than any other bait. And it's one that nobody really thinks of much this time of the year. They usually think of this type of a bait during the summertime when the bite's really, really hard. But a shaky head trick worm, okay? It's another greenfish shaky head. It's a football style, but any shaky head will work. And I pitch it around the corners of docks and up in the shallows. And I don't really shake it much. I more hop it. But I like it because it falls fast, it surprises the fish on the bottom, and they readily grab it. They don't typically sit there and stare at it before they bite it. They'll just grab it and you set the hook and you're done. So a shaky head, I like to fish it a 1/4 ounce for doing this, nothing really lighter than a 1/4 ounce. 12 to 15 pound test fluorocarbon, medium fast action rod. Again, 8 1-to-1 or a 7 3-to-1 gear ratio reel will work, and it is a blast when they're on a shaky head on the outside corner of boat docks. All right, so the next one kind of goes along with a jig, but to me, sometimes I have a hard time getting bit on a jig, and so I'll switch over to a Texas rig, kind of a beaver bait. This is a rage bug, but any style beaver bait like the Invader or anything like that will work. I start off with natural colors, and then if it's really, really muddy water, I'll go with black and blue. But I'll show you how I've got this rigged up. I'm gonna pop this one off because it's all worn out. You can tell I've been catching a lot of fish on it. I always dip the tails in JJ's Magic. This is chartreuse. I might even do it in methylate to turn that orange. But I use a Gamakatsu finesse flipping hook, which is one of my favorite flipping hooks. 20-pound test fluorocarbon, 3/8 ounce weight, and I always peg it. Mainly because I'm fishing around docks, and it just hangs up a lot less under the docks when you have it pegged. 20-pound test fluorocarbon, again a 7'3" medium heavy, 8 1-to-1 gear ratio reel, and it skips really, really easy just because of that flat body. So it's another thing that you can really get far up underneath the dock. It's a blast. Like I said, this one's been torn up today because we've been catching a few. All right, so the fourth one is one that is still fairly easy to skip. But it's a moving bait, and you always want one that you can get way up underneath the dock, but then reel it out if they're in that mood to kind of tag a moving bait, something like a spinnerbait or anything like this. But a chatterbait. This is a jackhammer I think this is Golden Shiner. I got a little this is a Strike King blade minnow on it. Just about any trailer would work for that. But it's one of those things, like I said, you just throw it out, skip it up underneath the dock, let it sink 2 or 3 feet, and start reeling it real slow out and watch what happens. It's something that the bass really don't see much underneath docks. I like to fish on 17-pound fluorocarbon, just like most of the other things I'm doing around docks. 7'2" medium heavy moderate, or 7'4" medium heavy moderate. 13 Fishing has the chatter crank rod. A 7 3-to-1 gear ratio reel, and it is, you guys know the chatterbait. Those have been following me a long time. It can catch the crap out of them. I think we've caught 3 today on them, or got 3 bites on them today, and all of them been good fish. So the chatterbait. So last but not least, is the Gary Yamamoto Senko. And those of you who follow me know I really don't like fishing these, but in pre-spawn under docks, you can't beat this when you really got to skip them way up underneath docks. And I'm going to show you a cool way that I finally figured out how to rig them to keep them on there and make them last a whole lot longer, because that was always my complaint about the Gary Yamamoto ones, is they didn't last very long. So down here in my terminal box, this is the Plano Edge terminal box, I have little pieces of clear heat shrink, and I keep a cigarette lighter in my terminal box. And I can't remember the size of the heat shrink, but I'm going to put it down in the description. And I get it off of Amazon. I just buy, you know, a good length of it and it lasts me forever. But anyway, so take the heat shrink, of course, slide it over the worm down to, I go just past the little, what they call the egg sac or anything else. I go right to the very opposite side of it. So I put it right there. And then I just take my lighter, if I've got fluid in it, and not a lot of wind, and I melt that heat shrink tight around the worm. That's all it takes. And then take this wacky rig. This is a Gamakatsu, I can't remember what kind of wacky rig it is, but it's a Cahill hook, and it's my favorite kind of wacky rig hook. And all you do is you skin hook it, just like that. That will last you fish after fish after fish. I mean, I think down in Florida, I probably caught 15 fish on one Gary Yamamoto worm. I didn't lose any, and this is really hard to get the hook out of when it's time to replace or put new worms on it. But that's how I rig it. I put it on 10-pound test, 10 to maybe 12-pound test fluorocarbon leader, 20-pound test braid on a spinning rod. This is a medium fast spinning rod. Something that's really easy to skip. I tried a medium light once, but it was so flimsy that I was ripping the worms off the hook. So a medium fast or a medium heavy would work just great for skipping underneath docks. But that's a wacky rig Senko, and yes, I do fish it in the pre-spawn under docks. Well, that's it. 5 simple baits to fish docks during pre-spawn, and I'm about to make a video about how to fish those baits underneath docks and around docks, because pre-spawn and docks are like, they go hand in hand. You're going to catch the majority of your big fish moving into the backs of these creeks and using those docks as stopping points as they're moving back. And I love fishing the dock lakes. So like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water. Go ahead and catch some fish and have a great day. We'll see you.